The Pirate and the Mermaid. Once upon a time, in the deep blue sea, there lived a group of mermaids. They were beautiful, with long flowing hair and tails that shimmered like silver. But these mermaids were not just gentle creatures. They had an important job: to protect their underwater home. The mermaids had a secret island surrounded by sharp rocks and dangerous waves. Many ships tried to sail there, but the mermaids used their enchanting songs to lead them to the rocks. The ships would crash, and the sailors would never reach the island. The mermaids did this to keep their home safe. One day, a pirate ship appeared on the horizon. The captain of the ship was young, brave, and handsome. His name was Elias. Elias and his crew were searching for treasure, and they believed the mermaids' island hid gold and jewels. As the pirate ship approached the island, the mermaids began to sing. Their voices were sweet and hypnotic, like the wind playing through the trees. The sailors stopped their work and listened, unable to resist the music. Slowly, the ship drifted toward the sharp rocks. But Elias was clever. He covered his ears with cloths so he couldn't hear the song. He shouted at his men to wake up and take control of the ship, but it was too late. The ship hit the rocks and began to sink. Many pirates were lost in the waves, but Elias managed to swim to the island. When Elias reached the shore, he saw the mermaids sitting on the rocks. They were laughing and singing, proud of their victory. But one mermaid, named Lyra, caught his eye. She was the most beautiful of them all, with bright green eyes and golden hair. Elias, angry about his ship and his crew, decided to capture her. He sneaked up behind her while the other mermaids were looking and threw a fishing net over her. Lyra screamed and fought, but Elias was strong. He carried her away from the water and tied her up on the beach. At first, Lyra was furious. "Let me go," she shouted. "You have no right to take me." Elias smirked. "You and your friends sank my ship. Now you're my prisoner." Lyra glared at him. "You shouldn't have come here. This is our home, and we protect it." Elias shrugged. "Well, now I'm curious about your home. Tell me about your world under the sea." Lyra refused to speak. She sat silently, looking at the ocean with longing in her eyes. Elias noticed this and felt a little guilty. Days passed. Elias gave Lyra food and water, even though she refused to eat at first. Slowly, they began to talk. Lyra told him about her underwater kingdom, the coral palaces, and the schools of fish that sparkled like rainbows. Elias listened with fascination. He had spent his life sailing on the sea, but he had never imagined what lay beneath the waves. In return, Elias told Lyra about his life as a pirate. He spoke of adventures, battles, and treasures. Lyra found his stories exciting, even though she tried to hide her interest. Over time, they became friends. Lyra realized that Elias was not as cruel as she had thought, and Elias began to see that Lyra was more than just a beautiful creature. She was brave and kind. One night, as they sat under the stars, Elias said, "I will take you back to the sea. Lyra, I know you miss your home." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Elias. But be careful. My sisters will not forgive you for capturing me." Elias smiled. "I'll take my chances." The next morning, Elias carried Lyra to the water's edge. She dove into the waves and called out to her sisters. The other mermaids appeared, their faces full of anger. They had set a trap for Elias, and now he was walking into it. When Elias stepped into the water, the mermaids surrounded him. They sang a powerful song, pulling him under the waves. Lyra screamed, "Stop! Please, don't hurt him." But the mermaids ignored her. They dragged Elias down, deeper and deeper. Lyra swam after them, trying to save him, but it was no use. Elias's body went limp, and he sank to the ocean floor. Lyra cried for days. She stayed near Elias's body, refusing to leave. Her sisters felt guilty for her pain, but they believed they had done the right thing. Word of Elias's death reached Triton, the king of the sea. Triton was a mighty ruler with a golden trident that could control the ocean. He summoned Lyra to his palace. "Tell me what happened," Triton commanded. Lyra explained everything: how Elias had captured her, how they had become friends, and how he had tried to return her to the sea. Triton listened carefully. He looked at Elias's lifeless body and then at Lyra's tear-streaked face. "All who die in the sea are under my protection," he said. "This man's soul belongs to me now, but I see that he was brave and kind. For your sake, Lyra, I will give him another chance. Triton raised his trident and touched it to Elias's chest. A bright light filled the water, and Elias began to change. His legs became a tail, shining like silver. His body grew stronger, and his lungs filled with water instead of air. Elias opened his eyes. He was no longer a man, he was a merman. Lyra gasped with joy. She hugged Elias, who looked around in amazement. "What happened to me?" he asked. "You are one of us now," Triton said. "Take care of Lyra, and do not let the sea's gift go to waste." Elias and Lyra swam away together, exploring the underwater world. They were finally free to be with each other, and their love grew stronger every day. From that day on, they lived happily in the ocean, protecting their home together. And though Elias was no longer a pirate, he found treasure far greater than gold, the love of a mermaid. The Pirate and the Mermaid, a new chapter. Elias adjusted to his new life as a merman faster than anyone had expected. Though he had once been a pirate, a man of the surface world, the freedom of the sea enchanted him. He swam alongside Lyra through coral gardens, explored underwater caves, and met strange, magical creatures he had never dreamed existed. Lyra was happy to see Elias smile again. She taught him how to communicate with dolphins, how to avoid dangerous sea creatures like sharks, and how to sing the songs of the mermaids. However, not everyone in the mermaid kingdom welcomed him. A growing shadow. The other mermaids whispered behind Lyra's back, "Why did Triton save him?" They asked. "He's a pirate. He doesn't belong here." One mermaid in particular, Marin, who had been Lyra's closest friend, was especially angry. She confronted Lyra one day. "You risked everything for this man," Marin said, her tone sharp. "And now Triton has made him one of us. But can you trust him? What if he brings danger to our home?" Lyra frowned. "Elias is not like the other men of the surface. He is kind. He loves the sea as much as we do." Marin crossed her arms. "We will see. But remember, Lyra, the ocean does not forgive betrayal." The call of the surface. As weeks turned into months, Elias found himself adjusting to life underwater. But there was a part of him that couldn't let go of his old life. Sometimes, he would swim to the surface and stare at the horizon, wondering what had become of the world above. One day, Lyra found him sitting on a rock, gazing at the sky. "You miss it, don't you?" she asked gently. Elias hesitated. "I do," he admitted. "The ocean is beautiful, but I spent my whole life up there. I miss the stars, the sound of the wind in the sails, and my crew. They were like my family." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have a new family now, Elias, but if you ever need to see the surface, I will go with you." Trouble from the deep. One night, Triton summoned Elias and Lyra to his palace. His face was grim, and his golden trident glowed faintly. "There is trouble," Triton said. "A ship has entered our waters, searching for something." Elias felt a chill run through him. "What are they searching for?" he asked. Triton's voice was deep and powerful. "They are searching for the treasure of the mermaids. A foolish legend spread among the men of the surface. They believe we guard gold and jewels in the depths. They do not understand that our treasure is the sea itself." Lyra looked worried. "What will we do, father?" Triton gripped his trident tightly. "We will protect our home, Elias. You were once one of them. Perhaps you can help us understand their plans." Elias nodded. "I will do whatever I can to help." A dangerous encounter. Elias and Lyra swam toward the ship under the cover of night. The water was dark, but their keen eyes could see the outlines of the vessel above. Elias recognized it immediately. It was the Stormcaller, the ship of Captain Victor, a rival pirate who had once been his enemy. "They'll stop at nothing to find what they're looking for," Elias whispered. Lyra touched his arm. "Be careful. They are not like you." Elias swam closer to the ship, listening to the crew's conversations. He heard Victor's voice barking orders. "Drop the nets. If there are mermaids here, we'll catch them. And if we don't, we'll burn the reef to the ground." Elias's heart sank. He swam back to Lyra. "We need to warn Triton. They're not just looking for treasure, they're willing to destroy everything." The Battle of the Reef. The next day, Triton called upon all the mermaids to defend their home. The water was alive with tension as the ship drew closer to the reef. The mermaids used their songs to create waves and strong currents, trying to push the ship away, but Victor and his crew were relentless. Elias led a group of merfolk to sabotage the ship from below. They cut the ropes of the nets and shattered the rudder, making it impossible for the ship to steer. But Victor was cunning. He had brought explosives and began to throw them into the water. The blast shook the sea, scattering fish and damaging the coral. Lyra and Elias worked together to save the creatures of the reef, but the destruction was overwhelming. Finally, Triton himself appeared, his trident glowing with power. He created a massive whirlpool, pulling the storm caller into its center. The ship was destroyed, and Victor and his crew were thrown into the sea. Triton spared their lives but warned them never to return. "If you set foot in my waters again, you will not be so lucky," he said. A new beginning. After the battle, the mermaids worked to repair the reef. Lyra and Elias stayed by each other's side, their bond stronger than ever. The other mermaids, seeing Elias's bravery, began to accept him as one of their own. Even Marin softened, admitting that she had been wrong about him. One day, as they swam through a quiet part of the ocean, Lyra took Elias's hand. "You gave up everything to be with me," she said. "Do you ever regret it?" Elias shook his head. "The sea gave me a second chance at life. And it gave me you. I could never regret that." Lyra smiled. "Then let's make the most of it. Together, we can protect this world and its treasures, both the ones above and below." And so, Elias and Lyra became guardians of the sea, watching over their underwater home and keeping it safe from those who would harm it. Though their story began with loss and conflict, it ended with love and unity, a reminder that even the greatest storms can lead to calm waters.